Dot dot. Okay. All right, the moment of truth.
All right.
All right, man. So I see that you're involved in all this stuff. What got you started in this?
I definitely got to art first before writing. I was always a creative person from a very young age. I was always drawing. When I was young, I was put in, some like gifted art program in school. Yeah, I just had a real love for drawing, and eventually that uh, mutated into painting and sculpture, and eventually, I guess it wasn't until maybe like late in high school or early college when I developed an interest in graphic design. Um, Decided to kind of follow that for a bit, and learned Photoshop and realized like that was really the kind of stuff I was most interested in terms of visual art. So
What year
um,
was that?
that was let's see, early '90s.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I've just been kind of flowing with that. I really enjoy using like photos as a base and combining a number of different photos and textures and things like that, and coming up with an original image. Um,
Is that Tetsuo from Hero shirt that you're wearing?
what's that? Oh no, it's Tetsuo the Iron Man.
Oh, okay. Have you seen Akira, the movie
Oh
Akira?
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Awesome movie.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, highly recommend Tetsuo the Iron Man to anybody who
Was it
has not
another
seen it.
anime as well?
It's no, it's live action. Like late '80s, I think '89 it came out. Japanese, like a uh, flesh mutating into metal, and
There were a whole bunch of great movies that came out.
yeah,
Like, how did people get this published? How did they get so much money into it?
yeah,
Remember the movie Cruel with like the he had like the thing looked like I'm sorry throwing star.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So yeah, it's like if you look at them now, they don't really hold up, but they're great ideas.
yeah. Some
Like
of them hold up, I think, but yeah, a lot of them.
some of them
Not,
hold up. Like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre holds up.
oh yeah,
I
that's
mean,
a favorite.
even Hellraiser, there are a couple lightning effects that are a little bit off by modern standards, but overall it holds up as well.
Yeah,
But all right,
definitely.
so let's get back to you.
Yeah.
So is that mainly what you do? Like you do graphic design, like you craft images and so on?
Yeah, I do freelance design work, so I do a lot of book covers, and I also lay out interiors for books, which is kind of not as flashy. It's because it's mostly just words on a page and incorporating design elements and things like that. But
Put like little pictures in the books.
sometimes, yeah, it depends on what the project calls for. I mean, sometimes it's literally just text and it's arranged in a eye pleasing way. Other times try to incorporate some imagery. I always, whenever I work on a book design, I always try to like incorporate some of the cover art into the interior in some way.
Okay, yeah, that's
Um,
cool.
Make it like a cohesive project.
Yeah, I like
Um,
that old school pulp stuff, like the Spider and the Shadow and Doc Savage, and they
yeah.
have those little illustrations in the corner.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people don't do that anymore. But I thought it really helps draw you in.
Yeah.
The first
Yeah.
the stories weren't that great. Some of them were good, but like they were getting paid by the word, so it was like they were just trying to crank out as much as possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it definitely helped.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when did you start writing?
Writing, I would say probably I remember writing occasional weird little short stories when I was pretty young. Like I remember writing something in like first or second grade and reading it in class, and it was very weird and very gross. And I remember like,
Was it kind of horror related?
yeah, kind of. I think it was like kind of bridging the gap between horror and things like Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Right.
So like some archaeological adventures that with I don't know, mummies and corpses and bloody eyeballs and things like that. So yeah, I remember like writing some story for class, and then I remember I actually still have this. I like with a classmate of mine. I think this must have been like first grade. We co-wrote a story that was called like The Haunted Castle or something like that. And I did all these illustrations, and it's very kind of silly to look back on, but it's also really fun. I'm so glad that I still have it. It's all these like drawings of ghosts in a castle that's covered with cobwebs and bats flying around, and like a levitating cat, and skeleton chained up to the wall of the dungeon and stuff like that. It's goofy, but I love it. So yeah, I started like, I guess when I was young, I would do that from time to time, and then I kind of like got away from it for a little bit, came back to it a few years later. I wrote short stories, like, I guess when I was in middle school and high school. Never really did much of anything with them. And then I would say like maybe about maybe like 15 years ago, I kind of got back into it a little more seriously, and
What did the writing aspect?
yeah, the writing aspect. And writing, mostly short stories to begin with, and then maybe about let me think, maybe like around 2013 or 2014 is when I've decided to try to write something longer, and I wrote my first novella. It's called SuperGhost. So yeah, and I've been going since then, and I've written a few novellas and a lot of short stories, and just had a new short story collection come out just yesterday, actually. So excited about that.
How did the first novel do for you? Did you get a lot of positive feedback? Was there like a number of people that wanted it? No.
Yeah, it did pretty well. It's more of a like bizarro story, kind of like fuses elements of horror and sci-fi, and definitely has that like kind of pulpy feel. I like pitch it to people as being about a mad scientist who steals phantom limbs from amputees and then assembles them into a giant ghost monster.
Okay.
So
Did
yeah,
you do the cover or any of the artwork for that as well?
yeah. The first release of that, it came out through Eraserhead Press, and I did like a little. They kind of had like a set design for all the books in the New Bizarro Author series, which was the series it came out through. And so like I did an illustration. It wasn't the full cover. But I have since put out a new edition of that where I did design like a whole new cover for that. I've designed all the covers for my own book so far, except for there was a limited edition of Triple Axe that Thunderstorm Books put out that Eric Wilson did the art for that.
Yeah, like all of my books, I've done the artwork for them, and I thought that would be kind of like that would be almost a bonus for publishing companies. But I found out that a lot of publishing companies don't want to let you do the artwork for it.
Mm.
It's they haven't even seen your artwork yet. They just like kind of as an automatic, they say, no, you can't contribute, because often they hire people because they like the story, and like the people have like some crap artist friend and they insist on using that as a cover. So it's just like almost like an unwritten rule that they just don't use a cover. So I really like I had to run it by the art departments and everything. And that's the other thing is like the smaller publishers often have an artist already or an art team already, and they kind of don't want you to intrude on that territory. Did you run into that?
I thankfully no. I mean I've definitely heard of that sort of thing. I know there's definitely publishers who have people they prefer to work with, or they have like a kind of a stable of artists that they use, and they like their style, they like their look. They maybe they want their books to all look a certain way. So I understand that to some extent. Thankfully, the people that I've worked with have liked what I've come up with, and it's worked out. So yeah, that's been good. I'm sure I'll run into that at some point, though.
Well, I remember my first publisher, and like since you're new to the game, you don't know what any of the rules are and the limits and all that stuff. But I remember my first publisher was Anarchy Books, and I had a cover I wanted to use in my first novel, and they said, "Oh, that's if you use that, a lot of people won't buy it because it's more horror based.
Okay.
And there's like a little bit of sci-fi in my story. They said, "Why don't we use one of your sci-fi paintings?" And I was like, "Why?" There's like a tiny bit of sci-fi. They're like, "Oh, well, sci-fi people will buy it and horror people will buy it. But if you just put horror in it, then sci-fi people won't." So they talked me into using it. And then eventually I got someone else to put out like a new edition of that book, and they used the original cover, and it sold way better. I don't know if you run into
Uh, no, not directly. Haven't dealt with that,
yeah,
thankfully.
nobody
But
turned it down or tried to change your artwork or gave you negative feedback on that.
no, nothing significant. I mean, some tips here and there, like maybe change this a certain way, things like that. But yeah, thankfully, I haven't had a whole lot of that. So yeah, I mean, in the design process, when I do, I'm speaking in terms of covers for my own books. When I work for other people, do covers for other people's books. Sometimes it's real quick, and I'll come up with something, and they'll say, "Great, love it, let's do it." And other times, there will be some back and forth, or they'll say like, that's really not working for me. Let's try a different approach. And so sometimes I'll do a few completely different designs until we finally nail the right one. But that's just the way it is. That's how the creative process works sometimes, and
Yeah.
you got to figure out what the best option is. So.
Well, I remember I did a cover for the band Shy Lude. They had a side project band called Zombie Apocalypse, and I said, "What do you want?" They said, "Anything you want to do." I did, and they said, "Oh, that's too horrifying. We can't use that. Nobody will buy our album." So I had to do another painting. You ever run into that?
Um,
Sounds like you've had an easier ride.
I guess I have so far. Yeah, nothing that dramatic.
The last thing I would complain about too is I had one publisher, so I submitted it, and they have somebody that takes the painting and they make a design thing all around it. I was like, that looks fucking horrible, and I eventually had to fight them and get a lawyer involved to even get my rights back and go to another publisher because I was like, you guys are crazy. I'm not putting that shit out.
Oh man, that's terrible.
You ever run into that?
I've seen that happen before. I've seen some really nice artwork that's been ruined by bad design. So yeah, some people don't fully understand how graphic design works, or how it's supposed to work, and how it's supposed to like enhance the artwork, and how fonts or borders or whatever are supposed to like really kind of pump the artwork up, and instead of holding it back. So it's a shame that happens, but it does happen.
Yeah. Have you mostly worked with smaller presses? I mean, that's mostly what I've worked with. Like, it seems like the big guys kind of have their own team, and they're really, reluctant to bring anybody else in.
Yeah, I think some of the larger publishers, some like the big five, they either have in-house art department people, or they probably have their core artists that they like to work with over and over again. Because when you're running a business, I mean, it makes sense. You want somebody who's dependable and reliable, and that's going to give you what you're looking for. So I understand that. Yeah, I've mainly worked with smaller publishers. I've done a lot of covers for Grindhouse Press, and I have a couple books out of my own through them as well. Thunderstorm Books, I've worked with a bunch. Death's Head Press, I did one cover for. And just other people. Sometimes somebody who's self-publishing, other times small press.
Yeah, and I don't mean to sound all negative. Like, a lot of people are really like right now. I have Crossroads Press, and they're awesome. So a lot of people do like they let you accomplish your vision. Um, so are you more into the writing, or more into the art? Did one lead to the other? Did you get bored of one? What went on there?
I mean, these days I like doing all of it. I enjoy all of it for different reasons, and it's kind of nice to bounce around, and if I get a freelance art or design job come in, I'll do that. And then if I kind of get sick of the visual art side, then I'll work on writing a short story or something longer or whatever. When I was younger, I mean, it was definitely art. That was like the original creative outlet. Like I mentioned, I was always drawing, and eventually got into other mediums that I was interested in. So that was the beginning, and then at some point I don't know, I became a horror fan, and got deeper and deeper into it, watching movies, reading, all kinds of different stuff, and eventually I started having my own ideas of stories, and I thought, well, nobody's written this thing yet, as far as I know. Like, let me try it, and eventually got into it. And like I said, I kind of took some breaks from writing over the years, here and there. Art was always kind of a steady thing, though. But yeah, these days I'm into all of it. So as much as I can do of any piece of it, I'm happy.
What's more successful for you, the writing or the art?
Oh boy, I don't know. Have to ask somebody else that, I guess. I don't know. I just enjoy doing it, and regardless of how many books sell, or how many design jobs I get or whatever. I still do it no matter what. I'm still gonna write stories even if nobody's reading them. I'm primarily writing for myself, first of all. And the art is kind of the same way. I have these ideas and I want to make them, whether that's some photoshopped image, or a drawing, or a story. So
Well, I remember back in high school, and I was in the South, so that might have been part of it. But I got a lot of shit for doing horror, both writing and artwork wise. Did you get the same thing?
Um, I mean, in the real early days, I was doing this stuff, but I wasn't necessarily showing it to anyone. I would just like, I mean, my parents would see it and stuff like that. My parents were not into horror at all. They never really gave me any problem for doing it. They didn't necessarily like it or understand it or anything like that. But, I was always free to be a creative person and follow my interests and stuff like that. Eventually I guess when I was in school, and I had art classes in school, people would see that work, but a lot of the time that was specific assignments that there was no room to incorporate horror until later on. So yeah, early on, I would say no, and then eventually I started sharing more of my work with more people, and uh no, like, I wouldn't say I had any like real overt backlash from people, thankfully. Like I said, it's just something I'm gonna keep doing no matter what. So even if there is some backlash, maybe there is, and I just don't hear about it, and that's fine.
It is. Everybody likes to talk.
Yeah, that's true too. I mean, yeah, especially on social media. I try to, like, I don't know, I try to tune out the negative stuff as much as possible. You know, I'm just gonna keep doing my thing. So I think more people should should do that too. Who
No,
cares?
I agree, and it obviously comes off better when they do their own thing than when they try to please an audience. I mean, whether they're a writer or a band or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know how many bands put out an awesome first album and then they got signed to a big label and they tried to make it radio friendly and then suddenly they suck.
yeah, that's true. That's happened a lot.
So, what do you prefer to write about? Would it be more like supernatural? Would it be more sci-fi? Would it be more like kind of fucked at humans, like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer type, or American Psycho?
I think I've done a little bit of each of those things. I don't know. I constantly have ideas. I know you talked about, like, keeping a note file on your phone, and jotting down ideas. I do the same thing constantly. Every day I'm adding something to this like endlessly long text file. Um, sometimes it's as I'm drifting off to sleep, I'll have an idea, or sometimes I'll just be, doing whatever in the middle of my day and have an idea. I'll jot down a note. Um, and I don't know, influences come from all over the place, everyday life, reading other people's stories, watching movies, things like that. So as far as favorites, I don't know. I mean, I definitely I like I like weird fiction, and I mean that in the sense of not typical stuff, but I also mean it in the sense of like the classic weird in terms of like like old pulp stuff that came about like at the same time as H.P. Lovecraft and many
Yeah.
of the
Oh, he's early, I think, started that stuff. But yeah, I'm a huge Lovecraft fan too.
yeah and all the way up to modern day weird writers like Matthew M. Bartlett, Simon Strancis, people like that, Nicole Cushing. Um, so yeah, I like things that are kind of just creepy and bizarre and understated. I like things that are loud and bombastic and bloody. I like it all. I like slasher movies. I like ghost stories. I like extreme horror.
Reference to one?
Not really. I mean, I really honestly I like it all, and whether it doesn't matter if it's movies or books or comics or whatever. Um, I'm into all of it. And as far as like the stuff that I create on my own, it's really just whatever I'm in the mood for. I might go through phases where like I focus on like a sci-fi horror thing for a while, and then I'll switch over to like I don't know, tiny monsters like critters or gremlins or something like that, and then I'll go back to maybe kind of a supernatural thing, and then I'll go back to aliens, and
Well, see, speaking of like Critters and Gremlins, which are both awesome movies, I recommend them. Um, but it seems like they have a lot more going on with the story than like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, or Maniac Cop or something like that. It's like, okay, it's just one crazy person who's killing a bunch of people, as opposed to like they might not be successful at, but they're trying world building.
yeah,
So I really appreciate that attempt to like bring a whole like a whole background to it. It's not just one guy that's crazy.
yeah, yeah, that can be fun. But even I mean, there's some like slasher type things that maybe have a little bit more going on under the surface. But yeah, I agree. There's a lot of things that don't. I wrote a book that's called Triple Axe, and that's like a slasher type story that's set in the adult entertainment industry. And I tried to. It's definitely got sort of poppy elements. It's got bloody, violent elements, but I tried to like make it a little bit more. It's got some things to say in there. So
What's the name of that?
Triple X,
Okay, and
like Triple X, but
right. When did that come out?
that came out. When was that? 2017, 2018? I forget now. Yeah, a few years ago. That came out through Grindhouse Press.
It's available on like Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, all that
Yep.
stuff. Okay.
Yep, all the usual places. Bookshop is another one if people are into supporting indies.
There are very few bookshops left. Like most of them.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I just mean I think it's bookshop.org is a yeah
I was not even aware of that site.
yeah.
So,
Check
but
it out.
I know Barnes and Nobles is trying to like keep it going. There's still some of those left, but like Tower Records is gone.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, I used to really love spending time in bookstores, and there just aren't nearly as many as there used to be physical. Yeah.
And I think it's kind of clever to focus something on one industry, like whether it's the porn industry or like American Psycho, where it's like the Wall Street, big tycoon. They're not even big tycoons; they're like financiers or whatever. But like I think what makes American Psycho is it is about one crazy guy, but he brings in that whole other world, and that's what kind of makes a story.
Yeah. 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 That's good stuff. I remember reading that many years ago. I'd like to revisit the book actually. Really liked it at
The
the
book
time.
blows the movie away. I didn't even like
Yeah.
the movie when I first saw it because I'm like, the book is so much better.
Yeah. I was the same way.
Respect, the movie is good. It's
Yeah.
just not as good as the book.
Yeah. I need to revisit both actually. It's been a while since I've checked out either.
Yeah, that's good. Although that's kind of a common thing. I don't know if you've seen the show Lock and Key. It's based off a graphic novel by Stephen King's son, Joe Hill, called Lock and Key. And Lock and Key, as a graphic novel, is way better than the TV show.
Okay. I haven't watched the show. I read the comic up through I don't the first few like collections of it.
Right.
Yeah. I remember enjoying it. I haven't watched the show though.
Yeah, the shows is always a mixed bag. Like I remember I was approached for it was like a Netflix like corporation. It wasn't as big as Netflix, and they liked one of my stories, and I was like, oh, cool. And then it just never went anywhere. But I see what they do. Like if you look at Preacher, if you read the comics are awesome. If you look at what they did with the TV show, it's horrible. So, and I'm sure a lot of people, like another example is Judge Dredd, the one with Stallone,
Okay.
like people saw that and they thought, oh, well, Judge Dredd is just crap. I saw that movie. It's like, no, it's an iconic character that this guy portrayed badly.
Yeah.
So it's probably a mixed bag. I don't know. Have you run into any of that?
It happens for sure. Yeah, I know that people always get upset when like one of their favorite books is turned into a movie and the movie sucks or vice versa or whatever. But then like some people say, well, you didn't like the movie, that didn't turn out well, but the book still exists, you can still enjoy the book.
Right.
But the other side of that is, unfortunately, some people are going to maybe see the movie that's not great and maybe never give the book a chance. So you kind of have to like still champion those things that you like and try to convince people.
Yeah, it seems like people are hard sell for anything these days, unless it's like a 5-second TikTok video. It's like, it's hard to get them interested. A lot of people don't even read. Like I'll talk to people and they're like, yeah, that sounds great, but I don't read. I'm like, how did you make it this long in society?
It's true. Sometimes I'll do conventions to sell, selling books and without fail, every convention, somebody comes up to the table and like flips through every book, picks it up, reads the back description, and then just like looks up and says, yeah, I don't read. and then they walk away. Like, okay.
I did one Comic-Con and I thought, this is great because I do all these like detailed illustrations. I originally wanted to be a comic artist. And, I thought it was actually a huge compliment. Like Frank Frazetta's daughters came over and they liked my work, but I didn't sell anything. Like people at comic conventions don't buy anything except for comics. Like they don't buy books, they don't buy videos, they don't buy anything.
It's a shame. Yeah. I don't know. I don't understand that. I don't really get it when somebody is just into one thing. Like if they're into a genre and they only read comics or they only watch movies. Like I don't understand that. I'm into all of it. I'm even, like I said, I read the books, I watch the movies, I like comics. I've always been like a big fan of like old time radio dramas, like from the 30s and 40s.
Oh, same here.
Yeah.
All the original Shadow,
Yeah,
radio serials and stuff like that.
Yep.
And
I love like Lights Out.
Assault because it's not going to be like a 2021, 22 version, but I like it for what it is, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm into all of it. I don't get it when when other people aren't. I just don't understand it.
Yeah. So anything that I do, like even with artwork, but especially with writing, I try and do some research into it. So like I mean, there's some stuff that you got to make up, like if it's a monster or a spaceship or something like that. But I always try to go, well, if I'm doing a spaceship, let me research what the astronauts went through. Let me research space. So I'm wondering if you kind of follow the same thing.
Sometimes it depends on the story. It depends on what's going on in it. I mean, some of the stuff that I write is just completely fantastical and not based on reality in any way, or the realistic aspects of it don't necessarily require research, because the story is kind of veering into this other direction. But other things, yeah, absolutely. I just mentioned triple acts. Like, I did a lot of research into the porn industry, which, sounds like more salacious than than I mean. But yeah, I mean, I did a lot of reading about like how things work in the industry and what people go through. Um, but something like SuperGhost, not a ton of research with that, because that was about. I mean, I did some research with regard to like phantom limb syndrome that people deal with, but I didn't do any research into how somebody would remove a phantom limb from somebody, because that's not real. And making giant ghost monsters, that's not a real thing. That's a mad scientist thing. So I didn't need to put the research in that corner of the story.
Well, if you have a story where an actual limb is removed, I know somebody.
Okay.
The whole like tattooing community is very close to the whole piercing and
Yeah.
body modification community. So talk to me later if you want.
I'll, I'll hit you up.
So, what do you think about like one thing I really like is I like first person, like the whole H.P. Lovecraft, like I'm experiencing it right now, and I find that tends to be a little bit divisive. Some people love it, some people hate it.
I like it. I'm cool with it. I've written a number of things that are first person. I've written things in third person. Haven't written too many second person things. That's the really divisive one, I think. but yeah, first person, I like it. Um, my book Crazytimes, which was the one that came out prior to my most recent one, that's written in like first person present active. It's just like a narrator describing everything that they're seeing. It's all like kind of done in real time. um yeah, I like it. It to me, that book, at least in terms of when I was writing it, it felt like um felt very like, let's go. Just very, very, like I said, active, energetic. I was pumped to like start the next chapter the following day and just roll with it. So and I hopefully that's what people experience when they read it. I've heard a lot of people mention that they read that one very quickly, and so I like that sort of thing.
Whenever I write anything, and a lot of the stuff I write is in first person. I really like first person, but I always try and visualize everything. Like I try wherever they are, whatever house. Like if it's not my house, I try to like make up the color of the walls and the texture, everything. So like I can kind of feel more like I'm there and like I react to what's going on. I know that one writer I like a lot is Alan Moore. He wrote Watchmen. He wrote
Yeah.
a whole bunch of stuff. He wrote From Hell. Um, and what he does is he actually makes little storyboards of his entire tale. And when he did Watchmen, he actually built a miniature Manhattan. So
Wow.
he could say, well, if they're on this corner, they're looking at somebody in this corner.
Yeah.
So I don't go that far, but I do try and like visualize everything.
Yeah.
Do you follow a similar pattern?
I do that. I know a lot of writers who work out a ton of details about the setting or characters or whatever that ultimately never make it into the final book. And I do that sometimes. Yeah, I definitely I have not gone as far as like making scale models of anything, but like, yeah, I definitely visualize. I've taken notes. I think a couple times I've maybe like drawn out some little maps of things. But I think it's important because Whether the reader gets every detail of that or not, it's good for the author to know those things, because then you can tell the story more confidently, and you have all those details in your mind or in front of you on a pad of paper or whatever. um I think it just helps to realize things more fully.
It makes it more realistic
Yeah,
for the reader as well.
yeah, yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
One thing I hate is probably the thing I hate the most is when people break the fourth wall. Like they'll like the characters start talking to you. Like what's the guy who wrote Fight Club? He did that with another book that I read, and they're breaking the fourth wall and telling you about the character. I'm like, I couldn't finish the book. I was like, I've had it. You've destroyed it for me. So, what is your opinion on that?
I I think like a lot of other things, it depends on the story. Um, I can see how there's definitely instances where that would bug me, but other times I'm more willing to go along with it. I can't come up with any examples off the top of my head, but yeah, I think everything is really kind of dependent on that particular story. So whether it works or not.
Well, another thing I found is I found over time, it used to be any book I read, I had to complete it. Like, even if it was a crap book, if I was
Yeah.
like a third into it, I was like, I'll struggle through it. Like, I remember in high school, they made me read Wuthering Heights. That is not a good read. I made it through that. I remember Scarlet Letter. I made it through that. But now I don't know. I feel maybe because I write because I kind of think that I know where it should be going. You know, I'm willing to turn down the book. Like I'll make it like 30 or 40 pages in. And I'll be like, all right, I really don't like this, or it just isn't for me.
Yeah, that's funny. It's something that I've just recently kind of gotten to. That's a point where that I finally reached. For the longest time, I would have to finish everything I started. Um, Same thing was true with movies. Um, and I guess I still struggle with movies a little bit. Like I'll see a movie through to the end, even if I hate it most of the time. But with books, yeah, I've reached that point just in the last few years where I'm like, there's other ways I could be spending my time. I don't need like this 300-page book. I didn't like it when I was 50 pages in. I still don't like it now that I'm 200 pages in. Like, I don't need to finish this. Like, I can go put this in a little free library down the street, or I can, give it to somebody that might like it, or sell it on eBay if it's worth something, or whatever. I don't need this anymore.
Our library is weird. Our library did take donations. Like when I moved, I had a little bit less space. I had all these tons of books, and I tried to give them some, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't take books." I was like,
Uh,
"A library that does not take books." That didn't make sense to me.
uh, we have a lot of what they call little free libraries. Do you know about those? I
Yeah.
have those in my neighborhood. They're just like these little like wooden structures. They look like tiny houses. Like they look like little doll houses or cabinets or whatever. And people just put them like in front of their houses on a post, like a mailbox, but it's larger. And they fill them with books. They might have like two little shelves.
That was a
And
great idea. Yeah.
yeah, and people just load them up with books, and the idea is, you go, you see something you like, you take it. If you have something you don't want anymore, maybe it's something you just don't want, maybe it's something that you want to like recommend to more people, you give it away, you put it in the little free library, and somebody else can enjoy it at some point. So
That's a good idea. Where are you at? You're in PA, right?
yeah, I'm in Philly.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
so
it's in. I lived in Philly for a while. Is
oh,
it
okay.
in downtown Philly? Is it like more on the edges, like you've been Salem or something?
More on the edge, still within the city limits, but I live in West Philly. So it's more residential. But
Free library thing is more of a residential thing.
yeah, I don't, I mean, I think they exist like in downtown areas, but you're probably more likely to find them in more residential areas, suburbs and things like that. But yeah, like where I live, it's pretty, I mean, it's still pretty like densely populated, as cities are. But yeah, so just like tons of people really just put these in front of their houses. And so sometimes I'll just go for a walk and like I know where a whole bunch of them are in my neighborhood, and I'll just like, okay, I'm going to turn down this street. I know about that one. I know about this one.
Right.
And I'll go take a look and see if I find anything interesting. And a lot of times I don't, but sometimes I find some really cool stuff. And sometimes I get rid of things that I don't need to hold on to myself. And sometimes I'll put, copies of my own books out there. It's nice to see that they disappear. And, so I know somebody in town is reading something I wrote. It's a nice feeling. So, yeah.
No, that's cool. I don't even know how much people go to libraries anymore. Like when I was a little kid, like we were on army bases everywhere, and there was no internet back then, and we didn't even have a TV. So I just stop at the library and I get like a whole stack of books, and I'd have them read within like a week. But I don't know if that really happens.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think it does. I think people still go. Maybe not as much as they used to, but there's so many. I mean, it's true with books in general, whether you're talking about libraries or sales. I mean, there's so much more out there these days. There's so many different things competing for everybody's attention. Whether it's video games or movies or whatever the latest show that people are binge watching on Netflix is. People's
social media changed the game. Like you see people walking around like zombies with their phones.
That's true. Yep. Or maybe that's just social media itself is what's taking people's attention away. Maybe they're not reading or watching or playing or whatever at all. They're just scrolling endlessly.
There's probably a story in there somewhere. So what's your opinion on book trailers? Like when people make like little 30-second films or whatever.
Yeah, I think they're cool. It's not something that I've done for any of my books so far. Maybe I should. But yeah, I've seen some really good ones. I've seen some really terrible ones, but
So I've seen more terrible ones than good ones, but I've seen a few that like make you interested in the book, but some are like, I would have given that a chance until I saw your book trailer. It was such crap that there's no way I'm going to read your book trailer.
Yeah. Well, let's see. That was still useful then. it told you to avoid this.
Kind of cold the herd right there, It's like reader Darwinism.
Right, exactly.
All right, man. So let's wrap this up a little bit. Why don't you tell me what you're working on now and how people can get a hold of you?
Okay. Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, I have a new book out, just came out. It's called Departures. It's a short story collection, 10 stories. A few of them have been previously available in anthologies, but about 2/3 of the collection is all brand new. Just came out. It's available everywhere. And I hope people check that out. If you're a reader out there, reviews are a huge help to indie authors. So even if it's even if it's 1 or 2 lines, and I know, people don't like certain online booksellers. I get it, but it's a big deal for indie authors. So anybody who leaves a review, it's hugely appreciated.
Let me say one thing on that. It's like I really hate. I don't know about you, but I really hate when people go, "Yeah, it's good. It's just not for me." 2 stars. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, or like,
I mean, like 50 pages into, I decided it's not really my thing. 2 stars.
Yeah,
you can't judge something if you didn't read it, and it's not your like.
What's even worse than that though is when people like. The package gets damaged in the mail and they get a paperback that's all like messed up, and then so that's what they base the review on.
Perfect, yeah.
Like, this book was amazing, but the cover was dog-eared, so 1 star. Anyway, so check out Departures, and I'm on social media. I probably spend most of more time on Twitter these days, but I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. You can find me there. And then also my website is 13visions.com. And I've got, info about all my books, some of my art and graphic design,
So people
And
go there to contact you for doing a book cover or something along those.
yep, yeah, that's probably the best way. Just go to the contact section. My email's there. And yeah, I've got pre-made book covers available, and I do custom work as well. So yeah,
Yeah, email us all your links and we'll put them up for display. But
cool.
thank you very much for doing this podcast and thanks for the interview.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.